Hello and welcome to SAP and SHRM presents Value Proposition for HR Digitalization and Getting It Right in collaboration with ET Now. Now, the professional service industry as a whole has emerged as a leader in incorporating digital tools and trends in business. Compared to other sectors, business service firms have adopted digital tools at a much faster rate due to the inherently client-focused nature of the market. And today on this panel, I'm joined by a bunch of experts, and we'll be talking about the role of HR tech in managing these organizations and how technology is helping them achieve the next level of growth. Allow me to introduce my panelists. We have Harshvendra Soin, he's the Chief People Officer at Tech Mahindra. Kavita Kurup, the Global Head, Talent and Organizational Transformation, UST. Arun Rao, Chief People Officer, Birlasoft. Pallavi Kapoor, Head HR, APAC, Global Verticals, BFS and Insurance, Coforge, and James Thomas, Vice President, SAP SuccessFactors. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here today. Harsh, let's kick off with you. How has the definition of a professional service organization changed from the times before the pandemic, and how are you managing business continuity and people strategy simultaneously?
Well, I think like for any other organization, the people strategy and the people function is very closely interlinked and intertwined with the business strategy that and business continuity that you talked about. Now, clearly with the pandemic, we are looking at what we see the new normal, where a lot of things have changed. Initially, we always thought that we will have a business continuity plan which could either be in a different city or a different country or a different location, but that's all changed. We have had to think about the health of employees, the health of our customers, and really to be up and running for our customers, especially in the kind of industry that we are in, because if we don't work, then banks, telecom companies would be down. So I think in the pandemic, what it's taught us is to be resilient and to rise above what we believe is a real big setback to our business continuity plans.
So true, such a valid point. Pallavi, if I could get you in on this, what are your thoughts?
I'm sure a lot of my co-panelists will agree here. One of the important elements that came into light during this pandemic, not limited to professional services, but for many other businesses too, is the speed of decision making and agility. The companies had no choice but to increase the speed of decision making. This was brought in as a major change while one was trying to improve the productivity using technology and data in new ways and accelerating the scope and scale of innovation. And I would want to believe that it worked. It really worked. I would say it hasn't been the easiest of time, and there were many businesses that came to a standstill situation. However, those who moved forward really needed technology as a backbone to support them, and which is why the tech industry has seen a phenomenal growth trajectory during this pandemic. I think even for us, it was this agility that worked in managing business continuity and people strategy at the same time. I would say it was a fine act of balancing the two.
Arun, you wanted to come in, your thoughts?
There were great points by Harsh to set the context and to initiate the discussion. The only flavor that I wanted to add was, I think the question needs to be slightly paraphrased. I think the definition of professional service organization hasn't changed. This is a group of people who bring in expertise at short call and help clients manage their programs. In a sense, that hasn't changed, but the expectations that our clients have of us have changed and changed quite dramatically. So it is not only standing up those crack teams at short notice. I think they are wanting professional services organizations to have a larger play in the whole game, come with more value adds. And that is going to actually start challenging the business model per se.
Kavita, I want to bring you in on the conversation from a slightly different angle. In your experience, how can professional business services that are leveraging the benefits of cloud software, how can they gain increased flexibility in managing remote and contingent employees that are working, from different time zones? Because that it's so common now. I mean, I get on calls at 10 in the night sometimes because you're talking to somebody who's it's early in the morning for them in a different time zone. How are you managing that? Your thoughts?
But the pandemic has forced us to do transformation twofold, right? So you need to transform yourself and at the same time offer those services to the client and make sure that they are at sync and they are able to continue their businesses. One of the first things that we did when we moved to the pandemic, and we were one of the first companies who went to almost 97% work from home a week into the pandemic across the globe, we rolled out a program called DigiB, where we said, let's teach our people what are the digital behaviors they need to work with, right? How is it that they can continue to connect with their people, their clients, and still do whatever they used to do in the brick and mortar structure that we were so comfortable and used to? How do you translate that into the virtual space? Creating those toolkits, I think, helped to a large extent, to the extent that our clients then started reaching out to us saying, hey, can you extend them to us? And let us share them because you've already done the work, and we were more than glad to pitch in and help out. So it definitely does help in a large extent. But I think technology has made us, and it might sound oxymoronic, but it has made us more human in a sense, because we are now going out of our way to see how is it that we can leverage emotional intelligence, empathy, listening skills, which we may not have as much if we were in the earlier context.
Super. So you made two very valid points, Kavita, on technology and of course about how it's humanizing us even more. I want to come to James on the first one, and then I'll come to Harsh on the second one. So James, first, on the digital part, technology part, digitizing professional business services will not only demand providing customers with digital tools, but leveraging the expertise with modern platforms, so that you can enhance the experience of stakeholders. So how do you think technology can help professional services firms in this regard? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Sumit. Absolutely. So this is a sector which is very digitally savvy, IT mature. And over the last 2 decades or so, what has happened is it's a plethora of technologies that have gotten in terms of how to digitize the people's dimension. And one of the big shifts that we are seeing today is how do you really simplify the processes as organizations drive towards excellence today. Added to that, the pandemic has brought in a new dimension on hyper-personalization against standardization. So normally digitization enables standardization of processes, but there is a heightened employee demand for higher flexibility and higher personalization to how they are being served and how today's aspirations of the employee is being met. That's where we see the digitization shift.
Harsh, coming to the point that Kavita made about how technology is helping us become more human. What she said, that at her organization, how in the earlier days they had these sessions where the employees were made to be more digitally savvy. What's also a big part of HR is the upgradation of skill, reskilling, upskilling. The products that companies like yours are offering are continuously evolving and upgrading. So how do you take your employees on this journey of upgradation so that they are providing better services to your customers, considering it's work from home, considering you can't physically get them into one room and do a upskilling workshop with them? How will we be managing this?
What's really important is really to treat it like you see the Coke machine where you mix your own drinks. It's to allow people to choose their own careers, have an ecosystem. So they choose their own careers, they upskill themselves, and obviously in an environment which is virtual. And then what's most important is that we measure them only when they're deployed in the skills that are where they have upskilled. So just to add, I'm sorry, but just to add, in the gig working today, where an employee says, okay, I'll work with you only for, say, 20 hours a month, this is very important. Because if you push down an upskilling agenda on that gig worker, it's never going to work.
Arun, I want to take one point to you is, yes, professional services companies are working with technology, but do you feel that there are some companies who feel that, hey, digitization, technology is not within the scope of my work and it's just an add-on? Because let's be honest, I've done a number of panels and people do bring up the point that every company today is a tech company.
Today, when talent is scarce, today when your clients are open to a distributed ODC environment, which was hitherto considered to be a sacrosanct captive under cameras and security guards and all that stuff, today clients are challenging that notion and saying that I can afford a distributed ODC. So if you were to cater to that particular need of the client, you yourself need to have a technology ecosystem that supports distributed working, right? So your collaboration tools have to be A grade. You can't rely on voice calls and some email transactions. The teams have to be live.
On that note, it's time for a very short break here on SAP and SHRM presents value proposition for HR digitalization and getting it right in collaboration with ET Now. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to SAP and SHRM present value proposition for HR digitalization and getting it right in collaboration with ET Now. I have a stellar panel of experts and we're talking about the role of HR tech in the professional services industry here today. Kavita, there's another angle that comes into this work from home. Earlier, we were talking about upskilling, reskilling, but how do you ensure that the employee is not working too much? Because I know that is happening a lot where people have this need to be on 24/7. So even if you're answering emails at 6 in the morning as well as 12 in the night, it's happening all the time. How can digital technologies help organizations keep a tab on the mental and physical health of the employee and help them when they need the help there, that angle?
No, absolutely, Sumit. I think organizations have to be very, very clear on what their value systems are. And that is critical. I think as a society, we weren't really ready for this work from home approach. We have been very used to keeping home and work very distant. And working for home and from home has brought about its own set of challenges for everybody in the family, right? While the women face a certain set of issues, the children are looking at it very differently. The quintessential male, people in the family, they are looking at it very differently, but everyone's challenged. And especially in large cities where there's a space constraint, you have 3 or 4 people trying to work at the same time. So I think the most organizations can do is offer their trust to their employees and see how you can leverage technology. And I think their technology plays a very critical role, right? Because you can use a lot of the collaboration tools. You can use it to set up meetings with people across the globe. It's not like we weren't answering emails at 6 a.m. in the morning when we were in the brick and structure motor, right? We would still do that, get up early morning, answer a few meetings and go through the day, or finish your stuff for the day and then probably log in for a few hours at night and complete that. But the fact is that if you're sitting in front of a laptop today, you really aren't getting those breaks at the coffee cooler. You aren't doing your grape point conversations and just walking around. You're stuck here having this conversation, right? And I'm sure if it was other contexts, we would have all met in person and it would have been a very different feel to this conversation. We wouldn't be wondering whether are we on mute is the constant thought at the back of our minds, right? Whenever we are speaking in a panel like this.
True, absolutely.
So I think technology does help in that sense. It, to an extent, as I said earlier, right, it allows us to look at people as people and not as resources, because then you know that everything else is taken care of. Like the admin part of your life is taken care of because you can schedule a lot of it upfront, and then you're just focused on doing the tasks. Today, individuals have access to more technology than maybe some organizations. So how do you really match that, right? How do you match the employee's expectation of having technology and technology collaboration tools versus what the organization might offer? So that then becomes a huge part of your employee experience as well.
Mm-hmm. So true, so true. Arun, you had to, yeah. So
I just want to add,
Harsh first, then Arun, and then I have to come.
Agenda. And I think today, clearly technology has come to the fore in mental wellness, and all doctors are actually using this technology to give real big care, even during the second wave, as we saw in the country.
One of the bigger things than technology is to have more empathetic managers and more empathetic team members who need to kind of be aware of what's happening in their own spheres of influence and help people de-stress. There could be, there's a product opportunity here for SAP perhaps, I do not know. Look at the way people respond to their emails. In terms of there are people who kind of are spot on. They will respond. They will actually wait for a mail to come and they'll respond, right? Or write something and stuff like that. If you find that those people are not responding to their emails for 2 or 3 days, and then you're getting a response from them, means something is kind of derailing in their mind. So you could use technology like AI, ML, and stuff like that, and start picking up these quote unquote errant behaviors. These are not errant from a code of conduct of the organization, but away from the ordinary. And you could leverage technology to do stuff like this, and find out if these are symptoms of some upcoming, what's the right word, I do not know, but something that's out of the ordinary. Okay. And use technology to that. But I think the immediate sucker in this entire thing is the empathy that work teams can give each other.
James, from your viewpoint, where you are placed, where with all your experience, what are some challenges that you see the professional services industry facing, and some emerging trends in HR tech that you think are going to be significant, game-changing for the way ahead?
There is a connectedness emerging in the way, as Harsh beautifully explained, a learning is not in isolation. It is connected to what an employee's performance today is, where does he want his career to go, what are the gaps hence for him to evolve in that career. If he has a plan to do something else, how does the organization really enable that in a very adaptive, agile manner, right? So that's where very clearly a trend is emerging in terms of how do we connect these processes and make it more real and alive.
As the talent landscape becomes increasingly competitive, what is your approach to competition, particularly in acquiring and retaining top talent? How can different things be done to ensure that the talent is happy at the company and wants to continue, sees growth for themselves here?
I would say it's been more of action, less of planning, promoting speed, and continuously reiterating that's really reshaped the culture during this time. One of the last point here would be valuing collaboration over individual effort, driving a culture that thrives on transparency and interaction is something that's really been promoted. I personally believe that when it comes to creating a culture in a digital environment, the scarcest of the resources is not a technological know-how, but it's interesting to see that it's the leadership. The role of leaders fundamentally changes. They need to learn new behaviors, they need to drop in insecurities, and they need to let go of the old habits. Finding the right balance between alignment and autonomy is the key. It's the ultimate test of the leadership. Lastly, one shouldn't forget about being genuinely empathetic. I think that's what will really lay a strong foundation of culture, value, and purpose across.
Harsh, a very important point that Kavita brought out is kind of about the culture, the purpose of what that company provides to the employee.
At Tech Mahindra and the Mahindra Group, we believe in the RISE culture. Wherever you see it's RISE. RISE is nothing but our 3 tenets, which we are accepting no limits, alternative thinking, and driving positive change. And to our employees who are feeling this emotion during the digitization process, we guide them back to RISE and say, when you need an answer, look at the RISE tenets. The company is doing not only for itself, but for the community and the country. And that's what makes people believe, not in a brand, but in the larger purpose of what you do.
Absolutely. Just having that true north somewhere, bringing that up to the employee. We're running out of time. Arun, I know you want to come in. I will come to you on that, but I will ask you to come in and share a comment on that. And also, if you could maybe, as we start with our closing comments. So Arun, also if you could share your closing comments, just your advice to someone who is starting their career in HR today, what would you say, Arun?
So just one point on the culture piece. I think the problem is, the magnitude of the problem is so large that if you believe that HR leaders can solve for that themselves, I think we'll be barking the wrong tree. I think the entire leadership of the organization needs to be aligned on this particular mission. And what HR leaders can do is to ensure that there is convergence of the mission with tolerance for divergence of thoughts. I think that's what HR leaders can prepare their organizations for. But I think it is important for the entire leadership group to be aligned on this particular stuff. And that's where I like the point that Harsh mentioned about, pointing back people to a concept like RISE in the Mahindra Group. I think that's what, for that you need gatekeepers at different points where employee interfaces happen, so that they can spot for that discordance and drive people back to this.
It is a different world. It's a completely new normal. But I think anyone coming in HR should really believe in the power of technology to engineer a better future and create that positive ripple effect, right? That will touch all the lives, not just in the organization, but outside as well, and build for boundless impact. That's what will really help them get there.
My advice to the budding HR practitioners would be that once you've decided to stay in the game, and if you really want to stay relevant, be closer to your people. Strike a fine balance between data and empathy. See the data, generate insights, and act fast with empathy. Use technology to your advantage. I think that's going to be one key and one differentiator. Be curious and continue to learn new skills.
Curiosity when we were children made us ask many questions and discover new things. As HR people function, I think we need to continue to do that, inculcate that in others coming in. And really, the people function has the ability to lead the company and not be led. And I think that's where the people function is undergoing such a metamorphosis.
So what at SAP we urge and we are trying to guide organizations is, how do you take an approach which is more of a platform-centric, connected approach, and evolve the balance between managing human capital to really tackling people experiences. That's where the technology is shifting to the softer aspects of humanity, purpose, passion, and driving digitization as a platform to enable that.
Well, that's all the time that we have on SAP and SHRM present value proposition for HR digitalization and getting it right in collaboration with ET Now. Thank you so much for watching.